recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, JArrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Connie, Happy New Year. Slappy New Year. Here we are. We hadn't recorded. I know we're a little bit, the Seinfeld show, what's he say? You can't really wish somebody a Happy New Year past the 4th or the 5th.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's something in a Seinfeld episode that
I believe that.
You can't say Happy New Year. So I'm kind of breaking a Seinfeld code.
Oh, well.
Connie, Happy New Year. We're in the midst of an Arctic blast, playoff football. Jay Lethal's trying to get sideways on us. A lot going on internally in our group. But
hey,
pal,
let me ask you about that.
No.
Well, I just want to jump right in because I saw something on social media in the last week or so that somebody across the pond has decided to name your group.
Oh God.
I didn't think that was too polite.
Don't give Tom any
Total nonstop assholes. That's what we're going with. How dare he?
No, we're not.
How
Conrad,
dare he?
You know, I texted you about 6 months ago and I said, it maybe goes back further than that. I said, hey man, we're bantering around a couple of different names. You kind of put your ear to the heartbeat of the industry and do all these different podcasts and got a lot of longevity. And I think you look at the business through a different lens. And I said, any ideas from names? And as the kids say, Connie, you ghosted me. So here.
Well, I didn't totally ghost you. I texted my buddy Tom, total nonstop assholes. He just sat on it for a while.
Oh boy.
Man, I haven't talked to you. We haven't done a new show in 2024. So thank you all for joining us again for brand new content here on My World. I had to do a little bit of traveling. It was my wife's big birthday trip and yada, yada, yada. But we're back now. And boy, the world has been a changing. Last time you and I spoke, I still had hopes and dreams of Alabama being in the national championship. Not only did that not happen, Nick Saban done messed around and retired on me. But the Washington head coach lost the national championship last Monday and then flew into Tuscaloosa on Friday. It's a new era in Tuscaloosa. I started to hear the rumors about Nick Saban potentially retiring at the end of the year. About halfway through the season, I was told win, lose, or draw, this is probably it. So I really wanted to see him get one more. But I'm curious from your perspective, was it just a banner day to be a Tennessee Volunteer when you learn the reign of terror is over?
No. And that kind of goes to the human nature. Everybody absolutely loves a challenge. I would imagine in Knoxville, Tennessee, there was a tremendous exhale, probably not only in Knoxville, Tennessee, Oxford, Alabama, Athens, Georgia, Gainesville, Florida, all throughout college football. But man, Connie, taking a big step backwards when you really think about it, Saban, and I know that it's personally at home to the great state of Alabama, but Bill Belichick stepping aside, Pete Carroll out in Seattle, three legendary coaches, and in the vacuum, life goes on. It's, nobody's irreplaceable, but certainly change. And I like to say the domino effect, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how all these dominoes fall. And the rules have changed in college football in so many ways next year to the 12-team tournament and in pro. Our coach, which you didn't even mention here in Nashville, Tennessee Titans, let go of a guy that I think is an absolute winner. Look, has he not done too well the last season and a half, but you also fired his general manager and a new guy comes in. And anyhow, nothing goes on forever by any stretch. And in the high stakes of whether it's professional wrestling or professional football or college football, when big money rolls around, change is going to happen. So I'd rather ask you, I as a Tennessee fan, when Saban, that was my first thought. I'm like, wow, the dynamics change. I'm not all for it. He is the pinnacle, and you always going to have. You always kind of want when you hear all the great rivalries in sports and Lakers Celtics, it's Larry Bird practiced his heart out day after day after day. And he says it on multiple interviews. Why? Because he wanted to beat them damn Lakers. It just kind of gives you a target. So no, I think Nick obviously got his reasons, but there is without question, he left the college football in a better place. He left the university in a better place. He certainly left the team in a better place. And that is, to me, what his legacy is all about. He instilled in things in kids' lives that they will take to their grave.
I'm a big fan of Nick Saban, and obviously I'm excited that he's sticking around in some capacity. They're going to give him an office inside the stadium there at Bryant-Denny, and college football is going to be fun next season. Lots of question marks about what Harbaugh is going to do and some other schools, but a 12-team playoff. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure all of our friends across the pond are going to love hearing us talk about college football. Of course, the NFL playoffs got underway this past weekend. As you're listening to this, as a heads up, Jeff and I are actually recording on Saturday before any of the games kick off. So we weren't able to talk about the playoffs today intelligently and it'd be timely for you, but we will be doing that next week, of course.
Quick question.
Yes,
is Joe Burrow in the playoffs?
No, sir. He is not. He is in this. He's going to play in the same amount of playoff games this postseason as Abyss.
Yeah, just checking. You know what, Connie? I can't believe I forgot to tell you this. Guess who I passed in the Atlanta airport Tuesday going to Jacksonville?
Well, I hope it's Rick Boogs.
Close. Guy named Chris Park.
Oh my gosh, you saw him in the airport?
And guess what he had in his hand?
A clipboard.
He had a clipboard. It's the most craziest thing in the world. Walking through Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport with a clipboard in his hand.
Wait, hang on. You said you were going to TV, and I know that sometimes when you go to TV, you have a little tag along, a little companion. You didn't happen to have your little traveling partner with you when you ran into.
I didn't. I would have loved to have had my man Codes. He's been on a little down.
I want to talk about that because I saw a hilarious video that maybe wasn't funny, but it was for me, and I'm sorry for laughing. But I want to talk about that in just a minute. Okay. I just want to give a peek behind the curtain. There was a lot of chatter, as Dave Green likes for us to say, about this bet that Abyss made at the beginning of the season. He said Ohio State was back. The Crimson Tide didn't even have a chance to make the playoffs.
Nope.
And Joey Clipboard was going to make the AFC Championship and perhaps win it all. He was the next Joe Montana.
He sure did. He absolutely said those three things.
And we made a bet. And the bet, as you'll recall from our group chat, was that when none of that happened, Cody Angle gets to square up and punch Abyss as hard as he can right in the yam bag. And I was hoping right there it happened at the airport. Marcus was going to roll the footage.
Oh, shoot.
I'm ready for it. It's going to happen. But and I'm glad that Cody's getting himself in fighting shape. Not only is it wrestling season, but our man had a little bit of a procedure done recently that
oh my goodness,
felt like it was an event in your household. Care to share?
Roll the tape at 11. Did you get a chance to see any of the documentation via Instagram? Did you get a chance?
I saw his arrival back home at the ranch. We've established here that you live on an island of sorts.
Oh,
you have about 4 miles of shoreline behind your property. Normally it's only accessible by charter boat or helicopter, but y'all somehow managed to get a 4-wheeled vehicle there. Oh, and my man was on the struggle bus just getting out of there. And as I saw your face as you're helping him out, I said to myself, I can't wait to talk to Jeff about this.
I can't even put it into words. My man was selling. Can I tell you play by play that I wish we would have had on record?
I wish you would have recorded the entire thing because to sort of fill in the gaps here, Cody is in high school and he's at that age where a lot of kids, unfortunately, when they go to the dentist, they're told, "Hey, man, there's no room in here. We're gonna have to yank out some wisdom teeth." And as I understand it, he got both of the top ones out. And as you might imagine, they help you when you have that sort of thing done with a little bit of special medicine. It has different effects on different people.
Yep.
And it was like my man Cody got hit with a damn tranquilizer dart from an old Spider-Man cartoon. It was fantastic.
Well, I just found out before we hit play, Karen gave me a little bit more of it. Connie, he sat down in the chair and going to do the procedure. And bless his heart, he has been going through a lot of pain. They've been really bothering him. Really we had it scheduled, and he got some kind of bug, and so we had to push it another 3 weeks. So the last 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, it's been rough. But anyway, I guess he sits down in his chair, and he kind of knew from last time that he gets a little loopy. Well, he forgot one little small piece as far as that. Before you get sedated, you're going to have to run that needle. Oh, yep. Buddy, that little piece of information almost derailed everything. Karen said, "Let me leave the room." So that all got done. The procedure was a super success, pretty quick. And the nurses got him in the car. And I mean, he was back home in 90 minutes. And Karen texted me on the way home and said, "Hey, I'm going to need some help." I'm like, okay, he got no big deal. Buddy, when they pulled up in the driveway and she pulled in and then backed up to the front door, I said, "Okay, here we go.
Know what we're dealing with now." Yeah.
When we opened that door and his head was a bobbing, and wait to the payoff here in just a minute. His head's a bobbing, and Karen's getting tickled at me because it just caught me off guard, and she's kind of giggling. And Cody's smiling, so he's
in on the bit. Yes,
he's completing. He's doing the feet, and he's doing the Herman Munster walk and all that. And I said, "Honey, you go in the door for us." Anyway, we got him in bed, and they said, "Prop him up. Don't let him lie flat." Got him in bed and got him over in the middle of the bed and got the pillow situated in his head and everything. And one arm was like halfway hanging off the bed. And I said, "Hey, man, let's scoot you kind of in the middle of the bed. So anyway, got him in the middle of the bed. I just kind of crossed his hands on his belly where he's just kind of laying back. He looked at me through his galls and said, "Dad, just like Darby Allin, coffin drop. I'm ready for it." Oh, it was beautiful. So he is, man, what a recovery. He pulled the strap down, full night of sleep, had a couple of episodes, but he's ready to go. He's ready. He's ready. He is on the mend and ready to get back in his amateur season as well as his pro wrestling ENT career. So we're full tilt.
I love it. Hey, you mentioned Darby Allin. Were you at the show, the homecoming show?
I was. I had a lot of moving parts backstage on Wednesday, but I did see it afterwards. Wow.
Did you get to see Darby afterwards? Is he okay?
I did not. I did not. Yeah, I didn't even realize till I guess it was late. I don't say late. Yeah, but well after the show, that bump. So, wow.
Is that the first time you've seen anything like that before?
If you remember, me and Jay debuted against Sting and Darby in Jersey on the November pay-per-view last year.
Yes, sir.
And as we're going through a couple of different things, as the things rolled out, Darby got up on top of the tall ladder. I don't know, was it 12-foot ladder? And he jumped down from the top of the ladder, not to the floor, but yeah, I mean, he was up on the rim. I mean, it was high, and Satnam caught his ass in midair. That was like, okay, I'm seeing Darby Allin up live. So I've seen the bumps he's taken. Man, I have not, to answer your question, no, I've never seen I guess you could say, at pool parties, Conrad,
Right.
big guys have big guys hanging around the pool, but then you have a bunch of little kids and you toss them in the pool.
Yes.
That's kind of what we got into on homecoming. What do you say? Jeez.
That was the pool is probably a little more forgiving than the ropes, though. My goodness, I hope he's all right. That was pretty scary looking. We got to ask, there's a lot of headlines that were made in the last week or so. AEW has a new COO. Is this your first time meeting the new COO? Had you met him before through WWE or PBR or any of that stuff?
Well, I went, what was that, 2018 was the Hall of Fame year. So he had already left when I'd come around, but I think, anyway, me and him met each other, I think, a couple of times backstage, but I mean, truly in passing. So kicking off, I am super, I think back and look, we're starting 2024 and we're going to be doing a lot of content over the next 52 weeks of 2004. So that's like year 1.5 to 2.5 of TNA in those early years. And I've got such a vivid recollection when we started forming the executive staff. And you think about the growth of AEW going from 2 hours of Dynamite and Rampage in the early days, and then just kind of the growth. I'm elated. COO, I think, is a position that has been needed for quite some time. I don't think that is sharing anything outside the box, because I think but it's a part of, I don't say growing pains, but it's the growth of a company. And so I'm very, very excited for Coach A to be on board. I just think when you really drill down in the press release this week that WBD put out, and you take a step back and look at big picture, which we always get caught up, and look, we all do. It's kind of the nature of the beast. It's heck, in so many ways, it is why wrestling, to me, is so successful in the digital era. It's because of the constant exchange of information. And yes, some people will say Twitter's toxic, and I'd rather stay on Instagram or TikTok. And then you have YouTube over here and all these different kind of things. But at the end of the day, the wrestling industry, no matter what social media platform, is an instantaneous exchange of information, good and bad. But I think it's kind of what makes the world go around. And so I'm super excited to see Coach A on board and the continued growth. And I think with so many things coming up this year, I mean, Wembley was, it feels like moons ago, but how much we've got to do before we get to Wembley. But, Sting's last match, you just kind of put, when you look at the ticket sales and demand, and you think of, I don't recall, look, and I'm not the historian that others are by any stretch, but a guy like Sting, who, he exploded onto the scene in the very, very early stages of the cable television boom, if you will, 87, 88. So there's just very few opportunities. I mean, Hogan was, some people don't even, he was a territory guy. And Sting, he worked here in Tennessee, and then he went to Louisiana, and then he Dallas a little bit, and Crockett's and all that. But he really blossomed in a big way right before everyone's eyes. And the Shivani Jim Ross call of Flair Sting in Greensboro. So anyway, I know I'm kind of rambling and all over the place, but it is, I'm excited about Coach A and the growth of AEW. But man, just right around the corner, we're going to be saying goodbye to someone that I think a lot of. He has certainly been one of my rivals going back to the 90s. But we don't, say we, let me say this, the wrestling industry, we don't get these kind of opportunities to have a send-off for a guy who's still active. He's doing a dadgum table spot Wednesday. But it's, shit, I say it all the time, Connie. The business is, it's so much fun. There's so much going on, and I'm excited. Coach A on board, AEW and the momentum and the good, the bad, and the ugly that goes with it. But I went to Jaron's basketball game the other night, and I'll finish with this, but it kind of wraps the whole story in. There was a guy up there who was working at the game, and at halftime I went out to get another bottle of water, and we had a few minutes to chat, and he had lived in Charlotte, and then anyway, we just kind of talked about the evolution of the business, and this one guy follows stock prices and Endeavor and all that. I said, hey, man, at the end of the day, the wrestling business has changed a massive amount. But on the other hand, it hadn't changed at all. It's people getting in front of the TVs or going to a live event and enjoying themselves. And everybody's got an opinion on wrestling, period.
Well, it's been fun to watch, this build to Sting's last match. It looks like we know who the opponents are going to be. It looks like it's going to be Sting and Darby against the Young Bucks. I can't wait to see what happens at Revolution. As we're recording this, I heard most recently that there were like less than 100 tickets available. I would imagine they're probably going to adjust that. So don't assume it's sold out. Check in often at EWTIX.com. If you've missed your opportunity, they usually open up a few more for production kills as they get closer to the show. We still got a bunch of time to get there. So you're not locked out. AEWTIX.com. And you're not locked out to join them in North Charleston. That's where they'll be tomorrow night for Dynamite. Tickets on sale now. AEWTIX.com. We're going to talk about our topic today, which is Genesis 2009. But before we do, we should mention, since this is largely a TNA podcast at times, Samoa Joe is the top guy in AEW. And for a long time, well, really my entire fandom, whoever was the WWE champion was considered the top guy in the business. And whoever had like the New Japan belt was often considered to be, well, he's probably the best performer, whether that was a Kenny Omega or an Okada or whoever it was over the years, AJ Styles. But Samoa Joe, just a few years removed from WWE saying, we're not going to use you in ring anymore. We're going to make you a commentator. I mean, he did the pandemic WrestleMania, the first one back there in Tampa, as a commentator. And now he's got one of the most important belts in all of wrestling, the AEW world title. I think he even debuted a new world title with side plates with his name on it this past Wednesday. Out there suited and booted, looking like $1 million. I, for one, am here for it. I've been a Samoa Joe fan since 2004. So 20 years of Samoa Joe fandom here. I didn't see it coming, but I'm thrilled it's happening, and I imagine you are too.
Isn't it just amazing? The old Randy Savage lesson that he gave me, Double J, stay on the boat.
Yeah.
Stay in the game. And so hats off, man. You can't say it's a story of perseverance and ended at that, but opportunity. And you just kind of look at, and me and Joe were just talking the other day. He came in the spring of 2022 and had a movie on deck. And so he was gone for a little bit, not long after he debuted, but just kind of looking to hit his ride, so to speak, and the momentum of it. But I think back to the lunch that I had with Mick Foley in Long Island around 03, Conrad, maybe. And that's when we talked about all kind of young talent. I don't know exactly where he is at in his career, but he had watched some episodes of the show, and he obviously referenced AJ Styles, but he brought up Samoa Joe. That's the first time that I'd heard. I can't say that he pitched him to me, but I can say that he was very complimentary of him. And so it was 03, 04. And, when we got the opportunity, and Joe, I guess his ROH deal basically expired, and he wanted to come on board. And then we brought Joe in. It goes without saying what I think about Joe. He went well over a year without being beat. Yep. That undefeated streak, and lots of pitches and lots of ideas and angles, whether it's from Dutch or Vince or other talent. Of course, everybody wanted to be the first guy to beat Joe. Right. And I was just never, it just never felt right. And I'm like, hey, we don't have an opportunity with a guy like a Joe. And my default answer was Joe can win and still help get guys over. And that's an art. That to me was taught to me many different ways from my dad and Jerry Lawler, but it is so true. And if you can't really do that, I don't think you can really get to a next level. It's easy to win and get yourself over. It's even more difficult to win and get your opponent over. But Joe could do it, and we rolled along and had no really end in sight on who was going to beat him. And then that that quick conversation to Orlando from Dave Hawk, which is Kurt's manager, and said, hey man, I think we've got to, you got a shot if you want to have Kurt come on board, and how all that came together, and then the Kurt and Joe trilogy. But I am tickled to death for Joe to get this opportunity, but he knows it better than, or as well as I do. Now the hard work starts. He is under the microscope in every imaginable way, especially when you look at 2024 and the hyper criticism and complimentary. It is whoo. It is a pot of boiling water, no matter what. But Joe's up for it, so he's got his work cut out. But congrats to Joe, no doubt.
Well, it's going to be a fun new year in wrestling, a fun new year for AEW and Samoa Joe. And if you're trying to get geared up for the new year, can we recommend Factor? You see, you can get started on your resolutions with Factor. So when you're ready for the new year, Factor's ready to eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. You can skip the grocery stores, the prep work, and the cooking fatigue. Instead, you'll get chef crafted, dietitian approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from each week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more. And there's even like 55 weekly add-ons. So you've got tons of nutritious and flavorful options to help you kickstart your resolutions. You've got Factor's 2-minute meals. They're your secret weapon in the new year. You can fuel up fast. This is restaurant quality stuff, all delivered right to your door. Whether you're looking for snacks or breakfast or smoothies or juices, but maybe my favorite is lunch. And this is something that if you work in an office or you're not working from home, or heck, even if you are working from home, man, it's a hassle to cook for yourself. And it's even worse to eat the right kind of stuff when you're at the office and everybody's trying to figure out, hey, what are we doing for lunch? Here's a little life hack. Factor, man. We're talking restaurant quality stuff that all you got to do is heat it up, and in 2 minutes, you're good to go. And they've got this incredible opportunity for you to be flexible. You can actually change up your order every week. You can get 4 this week and 18 next week. Whatever you're looking for, as your schedule changes, Factor can accommodate it. You can stress less and just enjoy Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Going to free up time for everything else. You don't have to worry about the shopping or the cooking or the cleanup. If you're looking for stuff like Protein Plus, maybe you're trying to add some muscle in the new year, they can help you. Maybe you're trying to drop some lbs. Well, they got keto to help you stay on track. Factor has everything you need and all the other bonus stuff too, like smoothies and extra protein and veggie sides. Check it out for yourself. Head right now to factormeals.com/myworld50. Use our code MyWorld50. We'll get you 50% off. That's code MyWorld50 at factormeals.com/MyWorld50. It'll get you an extra 50% off.
Promo code MyWorld50. It's on my docket today, Connie, for one of my meals. You know,
fantastic, man.
A lot of chatter, Dave Green. You know, a lot of chatter, right, Dave?
I love a lot of chatter. Everybody does.
Oh, wait, the conversation about, hey, man, Factor, the My World listeners like Factor. And I said, yeah, it's real simple. It's good food. So My World listeners, join the crowd, because the listeners of My World are great supporters. We thank you for that. Promo code MyWorld50. But I'm going to say the Queen of the Mountain, Karen JArrett, is at the very top of the list on the orders. It's awesome.
Dude, my wife loves it too. I mean, it's great tasting stuff. I mean, I'll be honest, we've had different meal delivery services here on the show before. This is the one that we keep ordering even when they're not sponsoring us. Like, we just absolutely love the flavor, the convenience. It's a higher quality than what you're expecting. You will love it. Use our promo code MyWorld50. Go ahead and get yourself 50% off. But we're not going to be 50% off in our talk today of Genesis 2009. We're kind of picking up where we left off in 2008. The Main Event Mafia is formed and it's coming in hot here. The backstory of you and Kurt is continuing to evolve. Cut's cutting a promo on the Impact after Final Resolution, and he's saying that he has had visions and delusions of grandeur of taking TNA to the top. But he's done everything he could. He did the press and did everything he could to raise the profile of TNA, but the more he did, the more his boss became jealous of him. And that's you, Jeff. And Kurt again says this line: "You see, Jeff, I hate you more than I've hated any other boss I've worked for, and we all know who I'm talking about." So I like that. Talking about Vince without talking about Vince. What did you think of Kurt's execution of this this promo?
Phenomenal. I think this, what a way to kick off My World in 2024. But we go back to Genesis 09 and kind of the backstory. The very, very, very Cliff Notes version is I had been out of the ring due to my personal situation and my professional situation. Personally, with the passing of my wife, and took time off, but also with the hiring of Kurt Angle, I really had my mindset on not just stepping out of the ring full time. I'm just like, hey, there's so much going on from running the business, much more than just creative and production, just the whole business of the business. And to kind of dovetail into what we said, we had hired a CFO maybe 2 years of this, but now we were, our head count was probably at 40-ish. So there was a lot of moving parts. And then, of course, as timing goes and the Main Event Mafia was formed and Mick Foley was on board, and you could just kind of feel the natural storyline of Main Event Mafia versus the front line, and me and Mick kind of in the middle. And it I don't want to say it wrote itself, but it was there, and Vince and Dutch were certainly on board with it. And then Kurt, as the leader of the Mafia, and I've said it multiple times on this podcast, I felt like this version of Kurt, which was kind of a ruthless, smug, egotistical, but in a badass way, is not saying I don't like a dash of comedy here and there with Kurt, because he does it great. But this version, I thought, drew the most money, and he played it to a tilt. And it just, the promos we did here and the build, and again, the whole cast of characters really, really teed up for an exciting 09.
At the end of this promo, AJ Styles is going to come out and get beat down by the Mafia. The front line going to come in to make the save. And you do an interview where you say, from this point forward, you're solely the king of the mountain, Jeff Jarrett, the wrestler. So you're trying to just make it clear that you're not talking about your backstage role. You're a professional wrestler. And of course, we know you're not really stepping away from that behind the scenes, but is that important to sort of have that over the top moment where you let all the other fans and performers, wink, wink, know that, hey, I'm a wrestler?
And that was something with me and Mick's dynamic that we had kind of storyline driven, obviously had kind of been like co-chairs, kind of jointly trying to push this thing down. And we all definitely collectively, and also I got to tip my cap to Mike Tenay in this, in that it made, I don't say made it easier, but it made it clearer for, okay, Jeff is on the roster now, if you will. And that's where his mindset was. And I'm standing alongside AJ Styles and whatever members of the front line. But I was kind of stepping out of that founder role and stepping into a professional wrestler role. So yeah, it was important storyline part.
We've unlocked some of the creative notes from that time in TNA. And at the time, there's a lot about a pitch with the main goal of the Main Event Mafia and Mick Foley to transition to TNX. Can you tell us about the thought process and maybe why it didn't happen?
You know, on the notes, they're there, but I don't remember it being such a massive pitch. And hell, you tell me how you interpreted those notes, because TNX, as in the name of the brand, or the rebooting the X division. And that's kind of how I remember us saying, guys, we are top heavy in the Main Event Mafia, and all those guys are obviously in the heavyweights. But if we don't kind of reposition the X, not reposition, but put a focus on the X division, we're going to lose it. And that was kind of what I remember, that guys, we it's a calling card. It's a part of our DNA, just like the knockouts, but the X division was there first and foremost.
Well, the X Division title is vacated, and a lot of the TV is going to be taken up by a tournament. And the first Impact features the first matches of that tournament. 2 matches on the show equaled 5 minutes, so it doesn't look like it's that big of a priority. But after Alex Shelley's match where he beats Jay Lethal, Chris Saban is going to call out Mick Foley about getting the briefcase with the TNA title shot in it. Suicide's going to come down and attack the Motor City Machine Guns. Was this supposed to be heading towards Saban and Shelley in a Foley storyline?
During this time, everyone really wanted to, I say, further develop, maybe I don't say develop, but further develop Alex and Chris. They were fantastic in-ring performers, but their personalities and their real life personalities and their true friendship and everything that with it. So yeah, they were a focus. The video game was out, and Suicide was a dominant character, and we wanted to, get in a lot of ways, like I just said, put a focus on the X division with different characters. We had Sanjay, we had Jay Lethal, we had Alex and Chris, Suicide. We wanted to make sure the division put the proper light on it because it was such a part of the brand.
Let's talk about one of the interesting matches in this era. It's not a act if there's not a match on a pole. So this time it's a beer bottle in a bucket hanging on a pole match. Where James Storm's going to take on Abyss. James Storm gets the win. Of course, there's beer bottle shots and there's chair shots on Abyss and Matt Morgan from Rude and Storm. I mean, beer money here is starting to make a name for themselves. Were you surprised that you never saw them make an exodus to the WWE? It does feel like at some point they had opportunities. Why don't you think that ever happened?
You know, contractually, I don't think their deals expired close to each other. I may be wrong. I also think that they came together in they were cordial and buds backstage, but you wouldn't call them best of friends. Not that but I think they both understood the kind of the chemistry that was played out and how the people really resonated with them. And they're both fantastic tag wrestlers. And I think they respected each other's ability because, man, they could have some great work, great matches, no matter who their opponents were.
Brother Ray comes out to challenge Kurt Angle and agrees to have everyone leave and make it a one-on-one match. The front line leaves, of course, but Main Event Mafia doesn't, and they wind up brutalizing Brother Ray. The Feast are fired. Briefcases are revealed. Hernandez gets the world title shot. What did you think Hernandez's ceiling in the promotion was?
Ceiling? It'd be undefined. There was a time that I can assure you everybody on creative, everybody in marketing really wished he was bilingual in so many ways. His look is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It just fantastic. And, he was, to me, probably had his most success in LAX when he was the heavy, but he's a hell of a guy and a hell of a talent. But as far as an individual, I think, like a lot of folks, the well-roundedness of a performer, and that means not just your in-ring ability, you got to have charisma and there's so many different things, but verbal skills and being able to really lay down, as some folks, so the money drawing promo or the emotional promo that you really engage the audience. I think that would be Sean's downfall in a way.
Curryman winds up getting the fired briefcase, and the Impact gets a 1.16 rating. We've got 1.6 million viewers. That's 0.94 in males 18 to 34, 0.78 in males 35 to 49. Why do you think the Main Event Mafia was able to hold viewership unlike anything in TNA before, or maybe even after?
When I saw kind of that, all these kind of thoughts, just because this is something that I think is relevant, back in the day when you got, books, and I say books as in rating books in May and November. But now we're into weekly minute by minutes. It comes down to stars and storyline. They had it both. When you sat down and looked at Kurt and Booker and Steiner and Nash and then Sting, those five guys, all former world heavyweight champions, all had been in the game at this stage a minimum of 20 years. Certainly all had been on TV 15 plus. But then the upstart promotion, who continue to grow and grow and grow, and we know the Spike kind of history and the success and the build, and then you had your homegrown guys mixed in with Team 3D. Just everything had kind of come together. And when you kind of almost look back from day one of TNA of June of 2002, and now here we are, January, February, March, or January of 2009, it was really beginning. We had 7 years of a book written in a lot of ways. So I just think the story was there as much as the star power.
The Observer would note that Kevin Nash was talking retirement in the Windsor Star. Quote, "It's getting to the point now where physically I'm getting more beat up. I've got a couple discs in my neck that are bulged. I've got to get fixed, but I don't think I can bring anything to the program. I'll definitely step aside." He did say he'd like to get into acting, but with the state of the economy, it's kind of hard to get projects off the ground. Did you know, with Kevin Nash at this point in his career, you might be on borrowed time? Or did you feel like, that's just the way wrestling is? Everybody's one injury away, right?
Yes, and I got a question for you after I answer this. I always looked at Kevin as he's going to get the job done. I don't think I don't think there was a thought that ever crossed my mind that said, I'm hiring Kevin for his work, in-ring work. It was his star power, his verbal skills, his backstage contributions, his brand being a part of the product, everything that went with it. And so, his neck issues and his shoulder issues and all that, I always thought, and again, my upbringing and watching different things through the territory days and hearing stories, you kind of figure out, what is the workaround? Nowadays, I don't even think that mindset comes into play a lot of times. And that's something that, just wisdom teaches you. But again, I'm going to go back to, okay, his in-ring ability might not be, he might not be able to go 100% of what Kevin's 100% is, but does that really matter?
Right.
I don't know.
I think that's a fair statement. People want to see Kevin Nash be on TV, whether that's as a talking head or backstage or in ring cutting promos or walking a guy to the ring or hitting a jackknife power bomb. Like when you're a star, people want to see it, which is why Ric Flair's still able to make a living today. He's not out there wrestling every week, and thanks to you, he never will be. I mean, you retired his ass.
Well, that back parking lot, damn shoe. It's the shoe.
The stain is still there. by the way. I had a buddy of ours, Brad, had to be up there the other day, and he said, "Man, I was riding through, and I thought, you know what? Let me just check. The blood is still there."
There you go.
It's reported in the Observer that this TNA video game had about 425,000 units sold, but because Midway needed the game to be more successful in order to save the company, I'm wondering, did y'all ever get all your money and your profits from that game, or what did that deal structure look like?
You know what? When you just said all your money, that's a good question. We got paid the lion's share of our money, but I wonder if we, in their exit, but it was never. I know this in 2013, there wasn't a big note of receivables. I do know that for sure, and it would have been there.
Who would have been dealing with the video game company Midway? Did you have somebody on your team who was dedicated to that, or is that
what year this was? We hired Steve Allison, who came from the gaming world, but also Andy Barton. It just depends on what era of TNA and what month. Mike Weber was a part of marketing. I mean, there's the different heads, but there's no doubt Dixie and Dallas, when you're dealing with the money, Dallas would be first and foremost. They, that was their job. But Dean Broadhead, CFO, I would say was running point on all of that.
Let's talk about the tour of the UK that's upcoming. We're going to get into more detail on it next month, but when you know that you've got England, Ireland, and Scotland on the docket, I mean, business was good here in America, but it was great in that part of the world, was it not?
And ratings were good. Our pay-per-view business, and we said it on here, our company structure was, we've said it over and over. Do we sacrifice everything for ratings or try to get buy rates? And I think we kind of tried to serve two masters and really served neither one properly. But that was, that is the lesson learned from it. But, our live event business, but when I look at historically speaking, WWE's live event business in 09, 08, 09, 010, 11, wasn't setting the world's on fire. But this is when TNA, and I was really diving into it, 07-ish, 8, the international market and the ability to drive revenue and lots of it, not just from the television contracts, but licensing and live events and just building a business outside of North America was a high priority because of the market share, if you will, that WWE had. And again, this is, prior to, I'll call it the age of digital. Social media was, brand new. It's just a different era. The Apple generation, the Apple Wallet generation had not been born. So being able to generate revenue in the United Kingdom was very, very enticing for all of us. And it was a huge priority for us.
The next Impact has Rhino being elevated to be the next man to challenge Sting for the TNA title. Cute Kip is going to be brought in as the Beautiful People's fashion consultant, as the Sarah Palin impersonator is still hanging around with them, and Kip is blown off, and they're going to get a makeover. Goodness gracious. I know these guys were ratings juggernauts. Anytime we have the knockouts on and the Beautiful People, they're going to crush the ratings. But creatively, as a guy watching this show, not my favorite.
What, the Beautiful People weren't your favorite?
I just think some of these backstage skits about, oh, we got a Sarah Palin impersonator and we're going to do a makeover. It's like,
I got you. You weren't.
We got AJ Styles and we got Samoa Joe and we're playing grab ass with Sarah Palin impersonators.
Well, and to each his own.
Yes.
Creative is subjective.
Yes.
But I just sitting there looking at Velvet and Angelina, and I think to myself, well, he now has Anthony and Max. Not a lot's changed.
Oh my God, listen to you. There's also an ODB talk show with Christy Hemme where ODB is going to point out that Christy goes commando And the phrase is said, the carpet matches the drapes. We're talking about vagina hair here on the program. When I think of vagina hair, I think of the old saying in wrestling, no hair, no flare. Is there a Jeff Jarrett equivalency of no hair, no flare?
Come again? I was sitting there thinking, looking at ODB's set and for our YouTube listeners, I had forgotten.
The leg lamp on the right?
I was going to say, do you see the leg lamp from Christmas Story?
I mean,
right?
it is a great set where we've got a leg lamp from A Christmas Story, and it looks like the middle row of a 1995 Chevy Suburban.
Yeah, that's what ODB set. It had a lot of character, and I'm sure Dutch spent a lot of time writing these. Kidding. It's totally sarcasm. This is absolutely a Vince Russo. But I'm kind of, we're having fun with it. But when you kind of look at this era of TNA, the Main Event Mafia was straight up for power and control of the company. You had the beautiful people and Billy and playing that role. And then you jump over here to ODB and her set. And then we just touched on the X division, getting that division rebuilt. A variety. That's my point. A real variety. I know the beautiful people wasn't your cup of tea, but maybe it was others. Our numbers.
Oh, no. Listen, there's no arguing with the success. I'm not going to argue that at all. I mean, ratings.
I'm just kind of bringing it up that it's hindsight looking back on it.
They were crushing in the ratings. So when something works, guess what we do in business? More of that. So I totally get it. But the Sarah Palin thing was like, yeah.
Let me ask you, Nash said something about the economy in 2009, right?
Yeah.
In the US. Do you remember being in the financial world? Was it, I don't even really have, was Hollywood down, or was Nash just referencing?
No, that was a huge, the housing collapse just devastated and depressed the economy. That's when they started to do cash for clunkers. And I mean, they were doing lots of stuff just to stimulate the economy. It wasn't just housing. It was everything, everybody, everywhere.
Kind of like what we're going through now.
More so back then.
Okay.
I mean, you could see there was real, I'm not saying we're not going to get there now, but there was real opportunity for you to pick up some things of great value on the cheap.
Got it.
Luxury, whether it was real estate or luxury items, like exotic cars fell through the floor. All of a sudden you could have gotten a great deal. And that we've had some of that market correction. Like, hell, this time 2 years ago, a G-Wagon was $350,000 and you can get them about 150 now. But it's just, when the money dries up, people aren't, I mean, and the proof's in the pudding. Take a look at how many IPOs you saw in the last year. Not that many.
Yep.
Like, I know you're real tight and think real highly of all the folks at Triller, and man, they've been trying to go public for years. We see MEM, the Main Event Mafia, is hanging out with Mick Foley, and it's all in fun and good nature as they talk. So makes you wonder, what's going on with this? Kurt Angle's going to come out and cut a promo on you, and he's going to show pictures of you as a rookie. And he really is going to go through your whole career, and he's going to say that your storybook career comes to an end at Genesis. He makes a comment about your daughters, and you come out and you're held back by BG James, Scott D'Amore, and Terry Taylor. This is good stuff, man. Is this some of the better work you and Kurt did together, do you think, this storyline you're working on?
There was such a natural, think how to put the, you know what? I'll call it the natural first time chemistry.
Okay.
We had never worked together. And that just kind of, that thought, that's the first time that thought entered my mind, but it was the very first time. Again, the circumstances, bringing him on board, I was elated. It was, the face of the company, Spike, the growth, all those pieces of the puzzle. I'd never dreamed we would end up in this position that felt right as a talent to work and go down this road, and the story. And so the freshness of working with someone of his ability and talent, I think both of us, again, it was the first time. And I think that raised the stakes for both of us.
The beatdown of Bully Ray is recapped, and it's going to be pointed out that Sting actually walked away and did not participate in the beatdown. Shane Sewell's story is going to be highlighted, how he was almost paralyzed and decided to become a referee instead, but he winds up standing up for himself against Sheik Bashir. The main event of Impact is AJ Styles and Samoa Joe taking on Sting and Kevin Nash in a cage match. Styles is going to climb the back of Nash to get over the cage and get the win in about 9 minutes. And the Torch would recap it, saying this: afterwards, Kevin Nash swung the door into Styles' face. Joe, though, beat up both Nash and Sting in the cage. Angle ran to the ring with a chair to break up a sleeper on Nash. Booker T and Steiner join in. Joe's going to kick the chair in Angle's face, and then tossed Booker into the cage. When Steiner climbs through the ropes, Joe's going to kick the top middle rope to crotch Steiner, and he sets up a chair mid-ring, then lifts Angle for a muscle buster. And Nash is going to bash Joe in the back with a chair. Steiner's going to lock the cage door, and it's a 4-on-1 advantage. Quote, "This is exactly what Mick Foley said they can't do, and they're doing it," exclaimed Don West. The referees ran out to break into the cage. Nash is kicking at them through the cage. Styles starts to climb the side of the cage, but Nash is bashing at his fingers with a pipe. Angle puts Joe's arms in a chair. Sting's going to stop a charge of TNA frontline members on the ramp with clotheslines. Steiner is bashing Joe's arm with a pipe, and the rest of the TNA frontline is trying to climb the cage, but the Main Event Mafia is keeping them at bay with weapons as the show ends. This feels like almost like the beatdown on Dusty Rhodes at the Omni way back in the day on the way to build Starrcade, is it not?
Oh, wow. Okay. The very core of it is you can hear, I can just hear old timers. Folks, you got to get heat on heels. You got to build the story. You've got to get the people. And that was by design exactly what it was. Go heavy with the Main Event Mafia in a logical way, make the baby faces look great, and then end up with heat. And the little subtleties of Sting walking off and not fully participating in the Main Event Mafia, I think just all the more intrigued the group. But yeah, It was heat on heels and executed. And again, you got to, I heard Belichick on one of his retirement things here recently, Conrad, and he was, the way he said it was like so spot on. Players win in the NFL, coaches don't. And he was complimenting, but he's won 6 Super Bowls. But I also say in this instance for this segment, you can write the best segments in the world. If the guys don't execute it, it's all for naught. So what is it? The singer or the songwriter? It's gonna be both.
Well said. So you're going to write off Samoa Joe here, and it shows that Foley wasn't able to trust the Main Event Mafia. They are going to try to destroy TNA as best they can. It's really good creative. The show does a 1.17 rating, 1.6 million viewers. That's a 0.76 in males 18 to 34 and a 0.78 in males 35 to 49. And the peak audience is male teenagers. It's a 1.07. So it's holding really, really well. And the Observer had some notes about the behind the scenes machinations. Vince Russo wanted to push Foley versus Al Snow feud at the recent TVs, but was overruled by Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett didn't want Snow to be a part of the Main Event Mafia, feeling he likes the exclusiveness of an all-world champion group. Frank Trigg was likely to have become a member, but when he didn't clear his schedule to come in at the tapings, I don't think it's going to happen. The idea is Trigg has held the titles in MMA, so he'd fit into the group. Plus, he carries himself as a smug heel well. So let's talk about that in 2 different parts. Do you remember the idea at any point to include Frank Trigg in the Main Event Mafia?
Never in the Main Event Mafia. Him being kind of appendage and hanging around peripheral, yes, but never. It never felt right. And again, so this is 09, and we'll call it 96, 97, the peak NWO when there were 5 to 8.
Yeah, before it got oversaturated. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought, man, these 5 guys, it's special. Don't muddy the waters.
So talk to me about Al Snow. Do you remember him being considered? And is that fair to say that you're the person who shut it down?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I shut it down, and it was nothing against Al. And I have a strong sense that I told Mick or Vince, and then Vince related to Mick, or a scenario of me telling both. Nothing against Al, and
Yeah.
Mick and Al have been tight for years, but
Forever.
I didn't want to again muddy the waters. It was try to stay laser focused. I kind of look at the ebbs and flows of our industry, and I think one common thread when the business is, or things are the most successful is when they're streamlined the best they can. Just keep it simple. Don't try to get too complicated. Let the audience digest it. I think the chairman, Vince McMahon, he's a lightning rod, but I think when you look back 20 or 30 years from now and you look back on his career, one of his main compliments or attributes or contributions to the business, when you study his creative, he really knew how to laser focus the spotlight on what needed to be spotlighted.
Well, something I want to spotlight right now is our affiliate partnership with Fanatics. We love talking about sports here on the program, and Fanatics is the home of the world's largest collection of officially licensed fan gear. So if you're thinking about picking up maybe your favorite baseball or basketball or football jersey, maybe you're going to celebrate the new Michigan championship or your team's in the playoffs. If you're looking for some new swag, some new gear, why not buy it at shopsportsmerch.com? You see, that's going to take you right to the Fanatics site so you can support your favorite players and teams, but it also supports your favorite podcast, My World. The next time you're making some of those purchases or thinking, man, I need some new hats or jerseys or caps or hoodies or whatever it is, Fanatics can hook you up. Why not take care of us too? Help us out. Use our URL, shopsportsmerch.com. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps us a lot. Or if you're watching along with us over on YouTube, just hit that QR code that's up on the screen now, or click the link in the description for today's episode. But of course, it's Fanatics. So guys, you can shop with confidence for your favorite jerseys and caps and shirts and jackets and hoodies. They've got something for everybody, no matter what sport, no matter what you're looking for. It's at shopsportsmerch.com. That's shopsportsmerch.com. So, Jeff, the movie The Wrestler is coming out around this same time. There's a lot of buzz before its release. I know you're not necessarily a big movie guy. You've told us before that you weren't planning on watching the movie The Iron Claw because you lived it. Did you see The Wrestler, and what did you think?
I did not see it when it came out. I saw it multiple years later. Colonel Parker, Robert Fuller, one of who his favorite actors is? Mickey Rourke. So I had known a little bit about Mickey Rourke's, I guess you could say, career and all the compliments he got into it. But this is what I recollect, because the premiere, when we were in the UK in a couple of months, they invited us to a theater. You know what? I did go to that and had to leave before it was over. So I did see like the first part of it in the UK in some movie theater. But anyway, it was kind of a dark movie. It cast, and again, that was something that I had not just seen, but been warned by my grandmother. Don't turn into this wrestler. Because she had seen so many that guys that, through the territory days didn't try to save their money, didn't save their money. And at the end of their career, when they could really no longer get full-time work, they didn't have anything to fall back on, not just a savings account, but really any type of skill set. And so that was pretty much what The Wrestler was about, my best recollection. So I don't know. It's one of those things, kind of like the Iron Claw. When you live it, it doesn't get me excited. If I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, I'm going to watch something I'm going to laugh. I want to laugh and have a good time with it.
Well, as long as it's not The Sopranos, just fire up that housewife show.
Help me out here. Just saw something on Twitter, something about the famous 6 words. The kid says something about ziti.
Oh yeah.
Help me out. Just give me.
I know what ziti is. I know it's a word that's said a lot in The Sopranos, but I'm not exactly sure about the scene you're referencing.
The grandmother wasn't coming over, and the kid goes, "That mean we're not having?" I think he cusses, or I don't.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Yeah, was that just a famous scene?
I don't remember that scene all that well, but I mean, I know the scene you're talking about for sure.
Okay, we'll move on.
The Christmas episode of Impact features Foley coming in.
You know what? You didn't even watch Sopranos, did you? That's a myth.
Correct? I'd be glad to do Sopranos trivia with you anytime.
Okay, carry on.
The Christmas episode of Impact features Foley coming back for revenge from the Mafia. It'll lead to him announcing matches for Impact. We need the Main Event Mafia to help sell some pay-per-views here. And the semifinals of the X Division tournament are going to feature Chris Saban and Alex Shelley winning their matches. So now they're going to be facing off for the vacant X Division title. So now the Motor City Machine Guns are in there against each other. We also see a sit-down interview with you and Mike today, and it's a mutual admiration society where he's thanking you for the job, and you're telling him, TNA wouldn't be TNA without you. And then he's going to say, you were supposed to step away from wrestling and just focus on the behind the scenes and not be a performer in front of the camera. And you actually point out that you hired Angle to take your place and build the company around him. And Tenay asks what went wrong. And JArrett is going to start speculating that because he's lost so much, maybe he thinks he's become bigger than TNA. But he says, or you say, no one wrestler is bigger than TNA. And that, yes, TNA needs Angle, but even more so, Angle needs TNA. And then Tenay is going to ask how this relationship got so personal. And you're going to say, well, he started talking about my wife or not my wife, but my life and my family. And there's some things that are tough to listen to. And it turns my stomach. So you're starting to we're peeling these layers of the onion more and more here, where we're blurring the lines of reality of, hey, this is just wrestler A versus wrestler B. And now it's, hey, no, this guy's the original founder and the promotion was built around him. Here's this new WWE wrestler fresh off a hot WWE run. So when you're away, we do sort of build the whole company around Kurt, bringing that real life circumstance makes for compelling TV. Like blurring the lines is what we as fans are looking for, right?
I think at the very core, it is what this may be too broad. I mean, too bold of a statement, but it's in so many ways we all want to believe.
Yes.
Disbelief. The wrestling family, and the only way that you can really suspend disbelief is you got to have something based in reality. And I was doing my cardio and reading the notes and kind of thinking of this overall broad strokes of Jeff versus Kurt. And then I'm thinking reality base and how, because I smiled when I kind of read some of the recaps, and we're going to get to a few other ones in here. But I just think on Lawler Dundee in this Tennessee territory, very, very reality based. At one point, you got Dundee's wife involved, and she got her head shaved. You think about, Zbyszko and Bruno Sammartino, and just all the reality base. You can, you look out in Texas and Fritz and the Von Erichs and those guys, and yes, that's the boss's kids, but man, they look larger than life, and the Freebirds. And I mean, you could go to all the territories, Flair and Dusty and the St. Louis territory built around the titles. I mean, we could go on and on. I mean, Puerto Rico is full of the Carlos Colon and then his kids, but back in the day, all their heated angles, every our business is built off that. I mean, even now you look at a Logan Paul, and I mean, he comes from an outside world, but he's integrated into the system, and he's using reality based, or they're using, it's just what we do. And when you kind of look and try not to complicate our business, that was the story. Jeff hired Kurt to take his place so Jeff could step behind the scenes and run the business side of it, and Kurt run the in-ring part of it. Well, things got a little muddy when Dixie got engaged and wanted Kurt to use a little more of opinions and mindsets, and she was trying to use him as a puppet to try to get her way here and there, and things kind of got complicated. And the more successful we got, the more I was second guessed backstage, and you had Mick there, and Mick really was in the generation of the Main Event Mafia, but a huge proponent. And I touched on it earlier, him quasi pitching Samoa Joe and others, and him wanting to see the growth and the upstart. And Mick knew his in-ring days were really behind him, but he had a match here and there left in him, and just anything. Connie, it's a long-winded answer, but it's when you look at all your podcast, almost all the money drawing stuff is reality based. I mean, Austin McMahon is the best.
Yes.
But it is such a simple. The reality is Vince was the boss, and everybody could relate to Stone Cold saying, take this job and shove it. I am the most powerful son of a gun here, and you can't run your business without me now. So what the hell are you going to do about it? NWO and Eric figuring out, I'm going to make the invasion, the North versus the South, and we're going to tear down WCW and rename it the NWO. It's exciting to me to this day. It still excites me when you get something that's reality based, and then you get to play it out and kind of take it down some fictitious avenues. Oh boy, that's when you can really play with emotion.
Let's talk about Devon. He's going to be positioned as a top member of the front line now, with brother Ray and Samoa Joe being taken out. So we're excited to see him have that opportunity. And the Hour of Impact on Christmas, by the way, has 4 minutes of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and listen, I get that it's a holiday and we're trying to keep people tuned in, so we got lots of cute skits and such. Steiner and Booker are going to team up to take on Devon and AJ, and of course it turns into a beatdown before the front line comes down to make the save. Foley comes down eventually, puts Mr. Sacco on Angle, and announces that he'll make his in-ring debut for TNA at Genesis, when he'll be teaming with Devon and Styles to take on Booker, Steiner, and Nash. So Foley's back, and it's a 6-man tag. We're going to lighten the load for Foley, but was this always the plan? He was going to come in and wrestle, or did it just evolve over time?
Strictly evolved. I mean, we knew when we signed him that we're going to get, or we were hopeful to get a match or two. And Mick was open and honest about it, but we all knew having Mick in the ring wrestle week in and week out was diminishing returns, not good for the product, certainly wouldn't be good for Mick's health. But in the right circumstances, it's a grand slam. And my gut tells me, and I don't remember the specific conversations, but Mick probably was a big proponent of, hey, for this first one, let's do a 6-man tag.
There's a coming soon video that airs here for Brutus Magnus.
My man, Nick Aldis.
Terrible name, but a great guy. Why Brutus Magnus? What a name.
Again, if you look back, it probably started more whenever the video, and I don't want to say just the video game action figure, when the IP situation and having the ability and the potential of creating a mess. And look, it's a different generation, a different era, but there was a time that it was, hey man, we need to create our own IP because it's better for business. And look, I've been on both sides of it, but my old man years ago said, use your real name. Well, we kind of split the difference, and Vince owned Double J for a time, and I own Jeff JArrett, put them together, and it was a unique IP. But it was just one of those things of let's create our own IP, and Nick wasn't the only one. I wish I could recall and tell you and a fantastic story on how we came up with Brutus Magnus, but I don't recall it. He may know. He may, or maybe he not. I don't know. Dutch or Vince may know. I don't know.
The main event of this episode
Go ahead.
is Rhino and Kurt. They're going to go for a while. You're at ringside to prevent interference, and after he finally slaps you, you're going to come into the ring. That makes it a DQ. BG James is going to call Angle a stupid son of a bitch, and Angle's going to attack him to end the show. It does a great rating on Christmas. It's a 1.0, 1.4 million viewers. And around the same time is when Homicide and Hernandez are going to sign new 3-year contracts. It's written in the Observer that the company probably promised to keep them together because that was the biggest issue. They were concerned about getting broken up. Do you remember that being the case? That Hernandez and Homicide were nervous y'all might split them up?
I think it was always like a topic of discussion. And I get it. Hey, don't split us up. It doesn't feel right. And we listen. Of course you listen to them. So yeah, it was a part of the discussion. I just don't think it was a deal breaker on either side.
There's a write-up here in the Observer that Frankie Kazarian's luck continues to be bad. Just weeks after returning from a torn triceps, he's doing a run-in at the tapings on the 15th of December, and he suffers a torn bicep. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. That was the Suicide character, of course, originally supposed to debut at the January 12th show. But now, because of surgery, he's going to be on the shelf until March. My goodness.
Yeah. Run of bad luck, man.
I mean, you got to keep promoting Suicide, though. So there's going to be discussion. Who should we slide in there now? It is under Hood. Christopher Daniels, Paul London. Low-Key's name is even bandied about. Man, just bad luck for Frankie here.
And when I, again, researching and going through the notes, you think about what if that wouldn't have happened? You know, it was totally a freak accident, and to be coming off an injury and step back into it. You just think about different times, and yeah, it was a very unfortunate for Frankie, who's a hell of a guy and a hell of a performer.
For New Year's Day, it's a best of episode of Impact. It's the best of 2008. It does a 0.95 rating and a 1.3 million viewer number. Pretty strong. I mean,
just a little time out here. The Christmas episode, and I waited till you gave both ratings. The Christmas episode and a lot of competition just being on a holiday surprised all of us in a very positive way. It was the kind of, the momentum of the show. We freaked out in a lot of ways as we're going, man, we're just getting the Main Event Mafia going in October, and November we were getting traction, and then getting into December, which is difficult to begin with, but back-to-back weeks of holidays of Impact airing on Christmas Day, then New Year's Day was, I mean, we had really bandied around, and a little footnote was, do we really want to give a complete episode away on New Year's Day? Why don't we just recap everything and put it together and retell our stories and all that? And if we suffer a little bit in the ratings, there's nothing we can really do about it, because it is what it is. Conrad, when that number came in and a best of only dropped whatever it was, it's one of those phone calls when you have with the network that you hang up going, okay, that they are really happy with what we have going on. Because again, a network looks at 7 nights a week or 6 nights a week. And we're 2 hours on just one of those nights. But when we're delivering from that on that level against those challenges, and they're happy, we were all very happy. That New Year's Day episode was very surprising. A best of did that number.
What a way to begin the year. Not too long after the start of the year, there's a letter that is going to get everybody talking. It's from U.S. Representative Henry Waxman to the Officer of the National Drug Control Policy. And it says that WWE and TNA have not effectively dealt with pro wrestling steroid issue. Was this something that anybody at TNA, Dixie, or yourself, or anybody was worried or concerned about, or just another day at the office?
It was on Dallas's radar, all that kind of stuff. And they would, want Nashville to weigh in on, hey, what's the response, if any? What's your reaction first and foremost? Where do we go with it? And probably most importantly, we would all go, all right, now Waxman, where's this coming from? Like, where's he? Who does he not like at WWE? Was he trying to make a political platform that he could lean into? All that kind of stuff. But for the most part, you have to, in those kind of deals, the leader, how are they going to respond? How is WWE going to respond? We knew our policies. We knew our realities financially, and we had defined our responsibilities, and we just continue to move forward with those kind of issues.
TNA is also going to be involved at the big Tokyo Dome show. There's an 8-man tag match with Kurt and Kevin Nash teaming with Riki Choshu and Masahiro Chono. They're announced as being newest members of the Main Event Mafia. And they're going to take on Giant Bernard, who we know as Matt Bloom or A-Train, and a host of others, including our pal Carl Anderson. The Main Event Mafia at the Tokyo Dome. What's the relationship like with Impact and New Japan here in 2009?
I mean, think about the names. I know you kind of glossed over it. Choshu.
Yep.
And Chono.
Yeah, it's a big deal. By the way, Ishii's on the other team too. I mean, there's a lot of star power here in Japan.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. So that answers. We were elated that the Main Event Mafia kind of was set on that platform in Japan. Not that it was going to create us any kind of special revenue, but man, the positioning of it, and you just, again, this is pre New Japan having such a, I don't want to say mainstream presence, but heck, I think you've or it's coming up. It's on the calendar. You talking to good old JR about New Japan in the United States and all that kind of stuff. This is 09, where yes, the hardcores knew exactly who New Japan was, and a little bit in the 90s with WCW, but for the most part, it wasn't really integrated into any U.S. promotion. But it was a big deal to me, and our financial working relationship with New Japan and TNA was solid.
Your pal Dixie Carter is going to make some news in the torch because she's buying a house, and not just any old house in Nashville, but the former home of country music star Leanne Rimes. Her Dixie and her husband Sergio are going to buy the house on October 30th, according to the torch, for $2.125 million. And boy, he just goes on to list a whole bunch of stuff. But a quick Google search shows it's right there of Hillsborough Road.
Yep.
Did you get to see Dixie's new house? What did you think of the new digs for Mrs. Carter?
A little inside baseball. It's a beautiful home and a beautiful part of town. But that's one of those things that it amused me, I think would be the best part, that I had more people when I saw them in Orlando or wherever it were. Hey man, I heard Dixie got a new house. What'd you think about that? I'm like, yeah, I'm happy, but is in a lot of ways one ear out the other. I was happy for them, but it's none of my business if Serge and her are moving houses and moving on up, if you will, and a bigger, nicer place.
And by the way, listen, I understand home values are different everywhere, but I just want to remind everybody that I'm sure when you heard that in 2009, it sounds like an obscene amount of money if you live in, where I grew up in Gunnersville, Alabama. But again, in that part of Nashville, 2 million bucks is just what the houses are. This is not that crazy, and I'm sure she's made just a ton of cash because Nashville has had explosive growth. But I understand in the normal context of a conversation, buying a multi-million-dollar home is a big deal. Is it a big deal if if your family's a billionaire
My
in that
point
part
is,
of Nashville?
okay, so that was kind of my set point, that after I heard it not 2 or 3 times, like 15 or 20 times, here's the thought that came overwhelmingly to me. Hey folks, I know Bob Carter doesn't come around often, but you've seen him a couple of times. But let me tell you, Bob doesn't have a vacation home in Mexico that's a 2-room flat. So
Yeah.
his vacation, I mean, it was like, does it really surprise you? It didn't me. Panda Energy International did so well. They had the ability to dive into an entertainment investment that was way out of their core business. That always spoke volumes to me.
I mean, just to be clear, in the last year or so, there have been $18 million homes that sold in that neck of the woods. So a $2 million house
Wow, is that
from a
right?
billionaire family, that's not that crazy.
No.
I mean, listen, if you're regular guy like you and I, yes, okay. But not that shocking to me. I don't know. Like,
That it made and here we are talking about it 20 years later. I was happy for him.
well, it was all over it's just interesting to me that made the torch. I mean,
That's what I'm
he
saying.
went so far as to break down the number of rooms in the house and the number of bedrooms and baths. It's like, guys, if you want to see something impressive, why don't you just throw in your Google machine Shad Khan's yacht? At least you know what I mean? Like, there's levels to this, boys and girls. My goodness.
Boy.
The torch would also write TNA strongly encouraging fans in the Charlotte, North Carolina area to attend Sunday night's Genesis pay-per-view at the Bojangles Coliseum, to the point of publicizing 3 special discount ticket offers to see Kurt Angle versus Jeff Jarrett in person. Considering the WWE just ran house shows after the Christmas break in Charlotte and Greensboro, TNA has to fight for those last remaining entertainment dollars from Carolina wrestling fans. One of TNA's ticket offers is targeted for kids, where an adult can pay a full price ticket and kids under the age of 12 will pay just $5 per ticket. Listeners to the John Boy and Billy Morning Radio Show or NASCAR hard card holders can pick up $10 off a full price ticket, with floor seats still being available on the John Boy and Billy offer on Ticketmaster. Man, this is a battle and something that is still happening today. You're always looking to try to move some tickets and sell some seats and fill some arenas. And scheduling is an issue, and the holidays are a big part of that, because a lot of wrestling families, like if you have a little boy in your family who's a big wrestling fan, a great Christmas present to get that young man is wrestling tickets. And if WWE just ran there and now there's another one, boy, it can be tough, I'm sure, here in January. No?
Conrad, this is something that is the luxury, if you will, to go back and look on this, because at the time internally, in a lot of ways, we were pulling our hair out going, ratings are good.
Yeah.
And these folks in Charlotte, there's going to be a small percent that buy the pay-per-views. But this is the only time we're coming to Charlotte for the year. And as a weekly promoter upbringing that I have, and understanding Monday nights and Tuesday nights in Memphis and Louisville, and episodic, and the advertising, and I mean, our marketing budget was substantial and all the things that go with it. But, at the time, I'm sure I was probably off my rocker internally saying, folks, you can come up with all the excuses you want. We're not delivering something that's not drawing. But on the flip side of that, it was, do we go to smaller venues and, this and that? I know there's some lighting issues on this show, and it's like, okay, did our budget just all the things, the day-to-day situations with running a business. But Conrad, we mentioned earlier Nash's interview about the economy, and you talked about 09 being down. And from a touring perspective, I just wonder, rock and country and whatever genre was selling in 09. I just wonder the touring business, not just the wrestling business, not just WWE, but just overall the touring economy of 09. But we were definitely disappointed in the gate in Charlotte. Definitely.
Well, before we talk about that, I want to talk about Booker T, because on the go home episode of Impact, as we get ready for this big pay-per-view, this is the first time we see Booker start doing that fun accent. He didn't do it consistently. He would slip in and out of it. I thought it was freaking hilarious, but I'm wondering what you thought.
So everybody came and had an opinion on it. Like, did you hear this? Oh, this and this. And again, I guess just by default, I'm like, hey, let me hear a clip of it. And I heard it. I'm like, okay. I said, but is there context? Why is he doing it? What's the story? If the viewer doesn't know the story and a Booker fan doesn't know the story, I kind of think it loses its luster. And I'm not sure we're going to get any ROI on this, like at all. And Vince was like, bro, he just wants to do it. I'm like, okay, I'm totally down with that. And it is entertaining, but why? And I'm not saying we have to do a 6-month storyline arc or even a 3, but can we give some context? Why is Booker talking in a different accent? And I never really heard that side of it.
Consequences Creed, who we know now as Xavier Woods, is going to team with Jay Lethal here to win the tag team briefcase. They cash it in on this Impact and defeat Beer Money. The main event of Impact features Kurt Angle taking on BG James, and Kurt gets the win about 10 minutes in. And of course, afterwards, it's another beatdown. You and Foley come out to make the save, but the damage is done. And then there's a big promo. It's you sitting on a chair in the middle of the ring in shock with a mic in your hand as Foley, Rhino, Styles, and Devon are all pacing behind you. And you start. This was between me and you. It had nothing to do with Brian, nothing. And you talk about trying to pride yourself on setting an example of doing things the right way. Kurt, that's character. But this Sunday, Kurt, all I can think about is beating the bleep out of you. And the crowd's going to start chanting TNA, TNA. A lot of emotion here. What do you remember of this?
Step out of my talent role and executive producer role, I thought is exactly what it needed. It was an emotional, heartfelt, and if I remember correctly, I didn't really, in what you would call Jerry Lawler, Austin Idol, John Cena, the really, when you think of like go home promo scenarios, I didn't really have that final, which felt by design for it to be different. And then Mick, I think Mick gave the go home lines, so we didn't have double go home lines, if this is the promo I'm thinking about. But I just thought this whole era, going back to reality based, but man, we had our eyes set on selling pay-per-views.
It was a fun promo, and clearly it resonated with the audience. The show itself does a 1.06 rating, 1.5 million viewers. Now, I realize that doesn't sound like it's up that much from the best of episode, but I want to remind you, this is up against Florida and Oklahoma in the BCS National Championship game. 26.8 million viewers for that game when you do this. It's a big deal. Meanwhile, the pay-per-view, it worked. You were at 20,000 buys for the January 08 pay-per-view. You're at 40,000 buys here for the January 09 pay-per-view. So you more than doubled it year over year. And Meltzer would say TNA had spent months building to the Genesis pay-per-view as its biggest show since April, based on 2 key matches. Several months in the making of a return match with Kurt Angle and Jeff Jarrett, as well as Mick Foley's first match in the promotion. When it was over, you were left with a lot of questions, and not the good kind. There was a negative vibe about the show, largely due to the crowd and the look of the show. And I have to admit, the show didn't seem to have the best lighting. Respectfully, it looked a level below where we had seen some of the big shows. And it's the biggest buy rate since lockdown. But as far as fans in the building, there's only about 1,500 fans there. So there's a lot to reconcile there. We're up double from last year. We told a good story. Fans are voting with their wallet at a distance. We struggled to draw locally, only 1,500 fans there. And for some reason, it just doesn't look the same on TV. Help me unpack some of this, Jeff.
So, you want to role play here a little bit?
Sure, let's do it.
I'll be Bob Carter, and you got to be me for a second.
Okay.
So, Jeff, y'all left the impact zone.
Yep.
And the impact zone seats, my best recollection, about, if you really cram them in there, about 12, 13, 1,400 people.
Yep.
Yeah. So you went to Charlotte and you got 100 more people.
Yep.
So that's kind of, but we're going to go ahead and say you got 1,500 paid at, we're going to go out on a limb and say $40 a ticket. What's that quick math, Jeff? Okay. I'm serious. So that's
60,000.
60,000. What was your lighting budget for this show? Just lighting. Mr. Carter, about 65, 70.
I was going to say, just to rig the lights in Nashville was 61,000. I'll never forget it because I thought that had to be everything. They're like, no, that's to hang the shit.
Think about the conversation from that point forward.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me we left Orlando and we had to pay catering, we had to pay travel, we had to pay
the trucks, the setup, the lighting, security. They kept part of our merch at the building, all that.
Yeah. So Charlotte, you kind of gave that city kind of a donation from us.
Yes.
Okay. So those buys that went from 20 to 40 and your profit is roughly 50% of that. Okay. So we doubled our.
So if it was a $30 pay-per-view, there's a $20 profit, 20 times an extra 20,000. Maybe we broke even.
See, I mean, it was, yeah.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, that is in a microcosm.
Were you disappointed in the lighting?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's all budget. It's in the bigger the building. And look, that's something that, you know, when you see shows on TV, and I'm not just saying Dynamite and Rampage and Collision and Raw and SmackDown and all that. I'm talking about every promotion. When you kind of look at things, there's a real dollar amount that goes towards everything. And for you folks out there that want to get in the world of producing televised professional wrestling, it's all in the lighting and audio. It just is. Mercy. You know that, don't you, Connie?
I learned the hard way. But
it looked great now. It looked fantastic.
Let me say this. If you're enjoying our conversation about making money, let me tell you a little pro tip here. DraftKings Sportsbook is the official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, and we are knee deep in them, boy. And we're bringing you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. Check this out. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. And man, I am so fired up about this because listen, it's fun to watch the games. We all know that. They're playing to see who's going to be champion. We can get behind that. But isn't it fun even if you're not your team? I know some folks in Jacksonville are going to be watching with bated breath, wishing, I wish that was my team. Well, guess what? Put a little action on the line. This past weekend, the Texans are a 2-point Underdog. I was pulling for the Texans. The Chiefs were a 5-point favorite hosting the Dolphins, who I don't think had ever won a game when it was that cold. It was like 0 and 5 below on the windshield. How about the Cowboys? My whole family is a bunch of Cowboys fans. They were -7. I don't know, man. I took the Packers +7. But I know that my man Lex Luger, I talked to him this past Saturday, the day before, or I guess now since the game was rescheduled, a couple of days before, the Bills were a 10-point favorite over the Steelers. 10 points? Woo! Get in on the action. I feel like it was free money with the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Why not have a little fun? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use our code MyWorld, and new customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. This is only on DraftKings Sportsbook with the code MyWorld. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling by calling 888-789-7777 or visiting ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use our promo code MyWorld.
So before we get into it, I cannot even believe that I have not congratulated you and you hadn't congratulated me. My World, we won the contest this year. So all you My World listeners, DraftKings promo code My World.
That's right.
Dave Green, shout out. I appreciate the support throughout the season. I knew we could do it. It came right down to it, but Double J and his magical picks, we won it again.
What do you know? King of the Mountain.
We've won it every year. Thanks.
Second verse, same as the first. Kevin Nash was at the show and in some pain, according to Dave Meltzer, but he was planning on wrestling and apparently ended up being rushed to the hospital a few hours before the show started. There was fear that he might have had blood poisoning and he underwent elbow surgery the next day. So this is clearly a real medical event, not something anybody would have planned for. You were there. What do you remember? It sounds like a pretty scary deal.
I just remember he was up and gone before anybody knew what happened, but Kevin's in tune with his
body. Yeah.
I mean, big time. He's like, okay, this elbow ain't right. And that's one of those things, those bursa sacs and fluid. And it's just kind of it's an incubation of it's perfect to get infection and for it to get in your bloodstream. And that's when things can go south quickly. And he knew that. He got it taken care of.
Let's talk about the matches. There was an unadvertised match with Homicide, Hernandez, and Eric Young taking on Sanjay Dutt, Jimmy Rave, and Kiyoshi. It's an elimination match that goes 13 minutes and 43 seconds. Hernandez is the sole survivor, 2.25 stars in the Observer, 2 stars in the Torch. Jimmy Rave, no longer with us. Man, what a fun guy he was to watch. I used to see him on the Independence in the Georgia area. Really loved his stuff in Ring of Honor. I know we both hold Sanjay in high regard. Eric Young really was the utility player of TNA for like more than a decade.
Fantastic talent.
Homicide, what a legacy he has in the Northeast. All the guys he's trained and brought into the business, and Incredible Wars and Ring of Honor with Steve Corino and the like. But Hernandez gets the guy. I mean, everybody was behind Hernandez here, no?
Yeah, without question. And again, it's one of those things when you kind of look back and on the roster, I would, if you get things going even remotely successful, in my mind, always would be start sowing seeds, because this doesn't last forever. And Hernandez was one of those seeds. We got to build him. We can't rush it, but let's do what we can to continue to build this guy. And that was the Hernandez mindset there for a while.
Let's talk a little bit about Alex Shelley and Chris Saban. They're going to be in the finals of this X Division title tournament. There's no real babyface or heel. It's a technical style match. It's really, really fun. I'm going to recommend that you go out of your way to watch this and Jeff and Angle. If you're going to watch 2 matches from this show, make this one of them. The Torch gave it 4.25 stars. The Observer gave it 4 stars. The finish would see Shelley pretending to have an ankle injury. Saban's going to stop, show some concern, and Shelley uses a schoolboy to beat him and take the title. I love these guys. One of my favorite tag teams. I don't think they ever get, the credit they deserve. And when they finally squared off, it did not disappoint.
And look at us 15 years later. They're still rocking and rolling over there. So
that's right.
As a unit, Beer Money, Motor City Machine Guns, LAX, I mean, we kind of Team 3D, the tag team division, again, and I didn't really get into it, but we'll have several opportunities, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. But the front line, Bubba and Devon, as a tag team, legendary tag team, but the roles they played from an individual basis as a part of that Main Event Mafia storyline, they were integral to the success of it. But tag team wrestling in TNA at this time was hot.
Next up, we've got Shane Sewell taking on Sheikh Abdul Bashir, 10 minutes and 18 seconds. Got a star and 3/4 in the Observer, 2.25 stars in the Torch. What do you think of this storyline where we've got a referee standing up to a nasty heel? All the referees are congratulating Shane after the match. What did you think of the execution? Was it?
I said it in the booking, in the booking room when we were laying it out, knowing this would get over 1,000 times better in the Impact Zone, because those people had kind of been brought along. You plot this match in Charlotte to a crowd that obviously is not going to be super invested in a underneath storyline, is going to be difficult for them. And Shane is a hell of a worker. And the story was there from a television perspective episodically. It played well on TV, but live, it was going to be a challenge from the day we booked it.
We should talk about the next match. We've got Robert Roode and James Storm regaining their TNA tag straps from Jay Lethal and Consequences Creed. It was actually a 3-way dance. Matt Morgan and Abyss would round out the match. And for whatever reason, the crowd was dead for like 90% of it. You've got 4 baby faces working against 2 heels. The faces couldn't really finish them. And I don't know that the crowd really cared. They just weren't into it, but there's lots of great talent in here. Do you attribute that more to it being one team too many, like too much of the good stuff, as we say here in the South, or why didn't this click? Beer Money was over everywhere they went. I don't know. It feels weird to watch this one back.
I think the litmus test of 4 baby faces and 2 heels. So we made the audience split the babyface reaction right down the middle. We did the title change to create excitement on TV and also to bring it back. Abyss and Matt. It was episodic nature, but from a live event perspective, we didn't do any of those 6 guys justice. And it kind of showed in the reaction. We would have been better off for the live crowd to go with the straight tag.
We got to talk about the next match. We got the ladies out here. ODB teaming with Roxy and Taylor Wilde to beat Miss Saeed and Rocket Khan and Mrs. Bolt. They go 7 minutes and 44 seconds. There's going to be a deal here where ODB pins Saeed with the small package, and then Kong comes out. There's a big pull apart brawl. Kong's going to choke slam ODB. It looks like Kong is hurting here. It's not well liked in the Observer. -1 star. The Torch gives it 3.25 star. This is always ratings when we've got the knockouts out here, but not critically acclaimed on this one. Why not?
Talent, and it's hard. I think Gale and Kong set the bar so high in a single match over a title in a simple storyline. And then, you get to again, I'm going to go back to Charlotte, who had never seen us a pay-per-view. And for the lack of a better word, what did the match really mean? And a 6-man and no story, to so to speak, much like the 3-way tag title. It just didn't. We'd been better off for the live crowd to go with a single. We just kind of split. And again, look at the 6 that were in there. I'm trying to think. It's coming up, but it was how. And this match didn't go long, so it's not like it destroyed the show. It just it was what it was.
There's a little skit here where Kurt Angle is going to tell Jim Cornette that the Mafia went to Rhino's hotel room to make him an offer he couldn't refuse, except he refused it. So they took him in a limo to a vacant lot in Charlotte and beat him up. But they were nice about it, so they left him with cab fare. But now he's too beat up to wrestle. So of course Rhino winds up coming back later. And somewhere in here, Cornette confronts Sting. How can you associate yourself with these guys? And Sting says something like he had been to Charlotte in 15 years and he wants to wrestle for these people. I like hearing that. Next up, the other match you should see on this show. We talked about the Motor City Machine Guns and one-on-one action, and I loved watching Kurt Angle and Jeff Jarrett here. So did the critics. The Observer gave it 4.5 stars. The Torch gave it 4 stars. Either way, you guys got plenty of time. Nearly 22 minutes. It's a no DQ match. There was a level of intensity that's a different level than everything else on the show. And Meltzer would say it will probably be the case for all but a few matches you'll see this year. The two wrestled like they were possessed, in the sense they were two people working a real fight as opposed to two people performing a routine. I want you to speak about that, Jeff. Like, when you're putting this match together, we talked about blurring the lines and the suspension of disbelief. And when that's the write-up in the Torch and the Observer, that a different level from everything else on the show. Wow. High five, buddy. You did it.
How about old Uncle Dave being complimentary, and even Uncle Wade as well?
Yeah.
Both. Now, again, back to the story, reality based, and me and Kurt knew. I guess you could say, as two professionals sitting down to figure out the strategy, the mindset was easy to get in, and we both knew we've got to go out and not. You have to make it about winning and losing, but how you get there and the subtleties and the mindset has to be right. And look, there's a time and place for all kinds of stuff. Obviously, I'm not really just talking about comedy here. I'm talking about different high spots. But just from the time both of us came through the curtain, the announcers can only really call what they see, and obviously the backstory and the storylines that goes with it. But you have to, and I think both of us always do. You go get in your mindset. All right, Mike and Don are going to be calling this. What kind of emotion do we want to convey? And I think that's a real part of the art of what we do. And watching it back and knowing the mindset, what we were going to deliver, and man, that angle slam off the stage, I felt that for a long time. I cringe still when I see it, but hard, just a really physical, hard hitting match that we both had our mindset. We're going to deliver. And Kurt, he always over delivers. When he puts his mind to it, he's right up there with the very best of all time. And the sequencing toward the end all played into it. It was, I'm proud of my work here. It's safe for me to say, yeah, it's one of my favorite matches of all time. And the story just was told right. We beat the hell out of each other, and the way he won, and then the afterbirth of the match and the follow-up, the intensity, it was kind of what professional wrestling is designed to be. Reality-based storyline built with a compelling physical match, and your people, your audience, you want them saying, subconsciously, I got my money's worth, and I think that's what we delivered.
Is this your favorite match with Kurt Angle of your career? You've had so many good ones with him. He's probably your best opponent, I would think.
The cage match in Cincinnati, 2 out of 3 fall, I felt was a good one. This may be the brawl out in the parking lot was, I can't say spontaneous, but the way we worked it was very spontaneous. Was another one that just was damn good television work. Yeah, this may be my favorite. To right up there. Yeah, right. Again, the first time chemistry. That's something that when I look back on, this is the first match we had.
Well, it's really not. I mean, your first match was in 08 at the Sears Center, Bound for Glory.
Oh, that's no. Wasn't that me and Sting? And he was a special ref?
No, Foley was the special ref. You're thinking of you and Sting as 06 in Michigan.
You're right. So it wasn't the first time. Okay.
But it is the first. I mean, that was Bound for Glory, like a regular match. You know, this is a no DQ match, so it's still fresh. I mean, to be clear, that was October. This is January, so it's just a couple months later.
So 08. Oh, yeah. That was my very first match back.
Yes.
Okay.
We covered that in the archives, which you can check out at myworldonyoutube.com.
That's right.
This is your second match with him, but still, I mean, you guys pull out all the stops here, and you mentioned it. I want to bring it up again. He goes for an Olympic slam with you on the ramp, and he's trying to do it off the ramp through a table. But you, for the most part, miss the table and wind up taking what looks like the brunt of it on your hip. Is that right?
Yep. Overshot the runway from the stage to the floor, and we bypassed the table.
So this is 15 years ago. I'm not trying to stir shit up or whatever. Is you missing the table on him or on you or both?
Got to be both.
Yeah.
But and I think both of us would be safe to say the adrenaline was flowing.
Right. So that's what I wanted to ask is when you're, I mean, listen, I'm not betraying any secrets here. If you had your druthers and you could hit fucking concrete or a table, we pick the table every time.
Yeah.
But when it hits, or is there a concern when your hip hits that concrete? Is there a concern? Oh boy, can I get up from this? Can I keep going? Can I finish the match? Or does that adrenaline take over and you don't feel it until later?
Oh no, I felt it. Look, I felt this one immediately.
Yeah.
Cause up in the air and up, and you can't really think split second. But as I hit, I go, we missed the table.
Yeah.
I felt it immediately.
You crawl to the ring, selling the hip, which isn't probably that much selling, and you're covered in blood. And Wade would say it's some of the best selling you'll ever see. And in the ring, you're going to use a pedigree for a near fall, which gets everybody buzzing, I'm sure. Angle brings a chair in. You drop kick the chair into his face. Now he's bleeding. This is really good stuff. Eventually, Angle goes for another Olympic slam. You counter with a DDT. You go for the guitar, but it's broken. So you hit Kurt with a chair, and he gets his hand up to block some of that chair shot, thankfully. And he reverses where you're going for a pin, and he gets the 3 count. But the post match would see him put your ankle in a chair and start stomping the chair. The idea is they're trying to break your ankle, and there's a big moment here where you're going to get taken out in a stretcher. This is really good, really well done. It feels real. It feels believable. It's hard hitting. I think, and it's not close for me. This is totally different from the Motor City Machine Guns match. I mean, this is a fight, whereas that was a more technical wrestling match. But those are the 2 best matches by far on this show. I'm glad 40,000 buys. I'm glad you guys were able to double what you did the year before. And I'm glad you were happy with your performance here. I mean, what a match for you.
You know, when I'm just sitting here kind of recalling on, so pro tip or any fan or any listener, whatever it is, when I really think back on, because you just spurred it, that's right, because we did the Sears Center match and then this match. Anyway, Shawn Michaels is really, really good at this. I think when you look at, we'll tie back in Mr. Saban. Okay. Here, his coaching tree, if you will,
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable, but there is DNA of Nick Saban all through college football.
Yes.
It's okay. There is DNA of Pat Patterson all through professional wrestling.
Yes.
His legacy. But when you look at Michael's ability to tell stories, and we'll say the last, don't want to give it a time, maybe throughout it, but really the last 15% of a match, Kurt's ability, I'm sure there's a few others, but it's what really turns good matches to great matches and great matches to classics.
Yes.
Is that last 15 minutes of storytelling, and its pacing is just the real essence of the art. And that's when I look back on this match and other matches with Kurt, but this one it was, well, the praise that the guys gave it is one thing, but the emotion from the crowd is really what it's about. They were highly engaged in this.
Would you have rather had that match in the Impact Zone? Your home crowd?
Because of the marketing, the people in Charlotte knew they were coming to see Jeff and Kurt. They didn't really know they were coming to see those two or three other matches.
Yeah.
So I think,
you don't think it mattered as much there.
I don't, not in our match. I don't.
Well, unfortunately, something has to follow it. And I say unfortunately because it's what's clearly an injured Sting taking on Rhino for the TNA title. Rhino's going to show up with his clothes all torn up, his head's taped up because he's been cut from this beatdown in this empty Charlotte parking lot. Cornette's trying to talk sense into him, saying, we can do the match another day. Rhino's going to grunt around and try to show that fighting spirit, but the fans, man, they don't care. Sting's their baby face. He's not in storyline. He's a heel, and Rhino's the baby face, but we're cheering the big star Sting. Very little to the match. Sting's going to hold a long bear hug. Rhino's going to miss a splash off the top. Sting uses a scorpion death drop. Rhino makes the ropes. The finish would see Rhino miss a gore, and Sting gets the pin with another scorpion death drop. He gets just a star in the Observer. I know he's our champ. We got to find a spot for him. We did our best to make some chicken salad out of a bad situation here. If he's hurting for certain, that is what it is.
Yep.
Next up, though, our main event, man. It's Main Event Mafia with Scott Steiner, Booker T, and what was supposed to be Kevin Nash, but now it's Cute Kip. And they're going to be taking on Mick Foley, AJ Styles, and Brother Devon. Booker T is using this weird voice, and he introduces Cute Kip as the third member. And it's written in the torch that he felt like the crowd thought it was a joke. But when people realized it was real, it was hit with a collective groan. They're trying to push that Kip was a big star, talking about him being a former IC champ, a former hardcore champ, and a 10-time tag champ. This is directly from the torch. But this guy was playing gay fashion designer a week ago and is best known for his ridiculous wardrobe. He cut a promo saying the Carolina Panthers sucked to get heat, but it didn't get much heat. Trying to do your best, man. You didn't expect Kevin Nash to not be there.
But
Kip took one for the team.
So making a decision at the 11th hour, or maybe past that, is not always productive. But let me roll the tape from you on what I think would have been a much better alternative.
Okay.
Me and Kurt wrestled 30 minutes before this, 20 minutes before this.
That's right.
Cornette's there. He's a figurehead. We would have been a lot better off for Booker and Scott to say, hey, well, Nash is down. Nash is down, so we're going to make this a tag and have AJ and who's
Foley.
AJ Devon
And Foley.
Let Foley say, hey, then this is real simple. I know y'all came here to pay to see me, but it's not going to. Anyway, take them on a roller coaster ride and let Mick turn into a special referee so you still get to see Sacco or potential of that at the right time. Run Kurt down and have him get involved, and Mick take off his referee shirt and say, hell no, it's back to a 6-man tag. Get a referee down here. Let him wrestle 4 or 5 minutes. Send him home happy that way. That's the audible we should have called, but we didn't.
Whose idea is Cute Kip? First of all, I know people are picking on Cute Kip here in the Observer, or the Torch rather. My man showed up to work that day and was asked, "You got your gear with you? Let's go." He answered the call. What else can you ask for this?
It wasn't his fault at all. It was a situation. It's look, I'll put it on my shoulders. Bad booking. And look, when we're at show day, and I used to preach this, Conrad. Hey guys, today is production day. It's not creative day. We're not writing the show here today. We're not going to talk about creative angles. We're going to go produce. And that's what we do here. So I have a feeling they thought, well, we better come up with an alternative before we run it by Jeff. And they just come, and I blessed it. So I put it on myself, but it wasn't the best alternative by any stretch.
They wind up fighting all outside of the ring, and the referee rules it a double count out in 8 minutes and 22 seconds. And Jim Cornette comes out and says, I've been doing wrestling in Charlotte for 25 years, and we don't do things like that here. So he restarts the match. And Booker gets on the mic and says, no, the match is over. Cornette doesn't have the authority to restart the match. And Foley gets on the mic and says, Booker's right. Cornette does not have the authority to restart the match, but he does. And now it's a hardcore match. And they're using garbage can shots, and the Torch would say they don't realize how Mickey Mouse this whole segment comes across. It's less than ideal, and the idea here is we're trying to tell a story that the front line is getting destroyed bad by the Mafia, but in the last match, the front line ended up winning in the end. Unfortunately, people just don't care about the feud, and really nobody can follow JArrett and Angle, according to the Torch. Plus, for Foley's first match back, there was nothing to hang his hat on. His knees and back are obviously in bad shape, but there was no great worker for him to work against, nor did they go the gimmick route like they do so often with the Abyss using barbed wire or thumbtacks. That's the thing I think is the biggest shame for me. This is Foley's first match with y'all, his first match back after a big layoff. And it kind of feels like an afterthought. No disrespect, but people wanted to see Devon with Bully Ray, and I know that's not the case. And we know AJ's one of the tippy top guys, so I get that. But you kind of need, I don't know. This is less than ideal, and in an alternate universe, I kind of wish you and Kurt would have closed the show. What say you?
Well, a heel going over. We didn't want to leave the people of Charlotte. We thought the most simplistic deal would have been take all the Nash out, Billy in. If that wouldn't have happened and you had a 6-man tag that go about 8, 10, 12 minutes and it paid off with Mick getting the win, there's not such the bad taste. They can easily follow it. Boy, I'm really telling myself, Connie, we made a bad situation much worse.
What was Foley's reaction when it was all said and done?
I don't remember. I am sure that he wasn't over the moon happy about it, but also as a performer, he's probably thinking, I survived. And live, I would imagine the people, I don't say gave him the golf clap, but they were happy to see Mick, and we pushed on through it. But from an overall weekly episodic TNA watcher, pay-per-view consumer, we underdelivered in the main event.
Right.
Period.
A wrestling historian on Twitter wants to know, the Motor City Machine Guns wrestling each other didn't feel right to me. Did you have any plans to make Alex Shelley or Chris Saban TNA champion? Thanks in advance.
Not at that time. They were going to be pillars of the X division or 2 of the 4 or 5. That was the mindset. And I think in a lot of ways, they're two of the very best to do it. They understood the concept of it needs to be an X division, which is a kind of a mashup style, but you better put a story with it in the match. And they are great at it.
We hope that we've been great at it here. You can get all of our shows early and ad free over on adfreeshows.com. Want to thank everybody for tuning in to be a part of our live studio audience today. We had the Novius Mac and Jeff Hayes and Bobby, and I think Leon was here, and Coach Keith, and so many folks showed up to hang out with us here on a Saturday, and we greatly appreciate your support. You get a new piece of bonus content from all of our shows, all of my different podcasts over at adfreeshows.com, and some great series like Beyond Nitro, where we sit down with Guy Evans and take a look at some details and have some never before seen or heard interviews and things like that all went into the making of his fabulous book, the Nitro book, that is still getting all this critical acclaim. I think you should check that out. And I also think that you'll enjoy the book with David Crockett, where we go episodically, week by week, month by month, day by day, town by town, breaking down what was going on in Jim Crockett Promotions. We just finished 1985. We're making our way to 1986 now, and I can't wait. All of that is available at adfreeshows.com. And coming up next here on My World, we're going to be talking about January of 2004. Do a little 20-year look back where we talk about an Ultimate X match. CM Punk is going to be involved with the Sandman and Raven. Yeah, it happened. Don Callis is going to call a main event pay-per-view here. Eric Watts is involved. Johnny Fairplay, Dory Funk, Vampiro, and so much more. And if you've got a question, you can ask it on social media. Very easy. It's at My World Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. In the new year, we're going to be going live on YouTube. So you want to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn the notifications bell on so you don't miss anything. That's My World on YouTube.com. We got a ton of new merch and swag, including the now infamous Last Outlaw t-shirt, available for you now at boxofgimmicks.com. And by the way, if you'd like to get your message to men 25 to 54 years old, no better place to advertise than right here with us. We have some of the same sponsors week in, week out, year after year. Why is that? Well, because it really works. And with our super targeted audience, there's very little waste. Go right now to advertisewithjarrett.com. Jeff, I appreciate the time today, man. We got to talk about sports. We got to talk about the state of the business. We got to talk about Cody Angle and getting thrown for a loop. This was a fun time revisiting one of your favorite matches ever, is it not?
Happy New Year. The year's kicked off. I'm excited about it. We're rocking and rolling. Yeah, I always enjoy this. And doing looking at that research, and I just think back on that time and how much the business has changed.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. So it's an exciting time. It's oh boy, Cotty. I'll just say this. Isn't Twitter amusing? We won't go in a rabbit hole, but isn't Twitter amusing?
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about some things off air. We'll be back next week right here on My World.
Peace.
Did you put Christmas on a credit card? Don't stress out about that extra holiday spending. SaveWithConrad.com can help you consolidate all of your high interest rate credit cards into one much lower monthly payment. SaveWithConrad.com has helped families just like yours save up to $800 a month. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket. And did I mention no payments until March? So don't make saving money a resolution next year. Make it happen today at SaveWithConrad.com.